it's going to be a good ride, we hope. There's lots of upside coming. Really, I don't think we've wasted a dollar. 100% success rate with the drilling, and that's telling us something, one, about the ground, but also hopefully the technical work, and people can trust us to take this to the next phase, and we think we're adding value, or we have added value, and that's really rewarding, and hopefully shareholders appreciate that as well.
Welcome to today's webinar with American West Metals. I'm Danica Warburton. I'm the Investor Relations Representative for American West. And today I'm delighted to be joined by the Managing Director, Dave O'Neill, who is going to walk us through a short presentation focusing on the recent drilling success at the Storm project. And then we're going to open it up to a Q&A. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Dave to share the presentation.
Thanks, Danica, and look, thanks everyone for joining us. It's been a fantastic few months for American West, and I thought it'd be a good chance to catch up with you guys, discuss the implications of the latest results prior to us getting assays back and things like that, and just have a fairly informal session, open up to Q&A, and also, this is a wonderful time to be able to thank the guys and shareholders that were really with us since the start, back at the start of the year, and backed us in to get this program underway. We knew this would be a really decisive season for Storm, and it's turned out to be exactly the case. So looking forward to lots of good news flow in the coming months and coming years, actually. Storm's emerging as a preeminent copper project and asset with potentially global implications. So happy to take you through a short presentation. And again, I won't use this to promote, AW1, but really just go through the Storm project in this instance now. So if people do have questions about American West, look, go back. There's lots of information. Go back and read the presentations and all the other information we have out, and educate yourself there. But I'll just leave this Storm focus, and we may get a little bit technical. So please feel free to add any questions at any stage and tell me to, dumb things down if I get too geological on you all. But I will share a screen. Again, I'll keep this fairly lighthearted, and feel free to ask questions at any time. So this is our RC rig. This is up at the 2200 zone. You can see, and look, a lot of this I want to talk about access, what it's like to work on up there. The drilling's been going exceptionally well from a production point of view. This is the RC rig in action. It's a very small unit, very easy to use. We sling it around with a helicopter, but you can see how neat and tidy it is. And also the terrain here, and this is what we're dealing with up in this part of the world. It's in the Arctic desert, so it's flat. You can imagine driving trucks and using vehicles and infrastructure on the ground up here is going to be fairly simple. But I will talk to the seasonality of Storm as well. So just quickly moving through. Again, look, I encourage people to go back. We're actually a 3-asset company. Obviously, Storm's based in northern Canada, and we have the West Desert and Copper Warrior projects in Utah. So very clear distinctions for us. USA and Canada, both or all three are in tier 1 jurisdictions and very close to infrastructure, so well placed. But I will touch on West Desert and Copper Warrior a little bit here, but it's mostly going to be about Storm. So now it's worth spending some time on this. So this, and I might run through where we're at with all of the activities. Of course, this is fairly loose. We don't want to constrain ourselves too much. People have to understand this is exploration and study work, and these things aren't always held to an exact date. But a couple of key things here is the diamond drilling. We initially planned for a shorter program, but given the success, we're going to run that as long as we can. The RC drilling also we're running as long as we can. Now, a word about how long that will be, because everyone asks, well, when are you drilling to? This part of the season we suck and see. It's about maximizing safety, maximizing production, and that means if you have weather come in, then obviously the amount of standby. So, and also managing the funds. So we've been drilling since April. So as you can imagine, we've done a lot of work, and we'll just see how it goes. We'll run as long as we can. So this time of year, what you get is it's quite warm, and you get these strange temperature inversion. So you sometimes get sea fogs coming in. And while that doesn't limit our fixed wing aviation, it can limit up on the plateau where we are using the helicopters to move the rigs, etc. So it is suck and see, and we will push as long as we can this year. Environment. So also part of the, we're doing the resource work, we're working up the study work as well, but we're also trying to front end load this as much as we can. So we're working with Asenco, our partners in terms of the ESG side of things. So in that regard, we're working to a streamlined timeline to be able to get this thing up and going as quick as we can. Because as people would realize, there's two very distinct opportunities here. There's the near surface ores, and then there's the deeper, bigger exploration potential as well. So it's very important for us to progress both at the same time. What that includes is getting front end loading the environmental, the community liaison, baseline studies and things like that. So we have been very active with the community. We had them on site at the beginning a couple of weeks ago, which is fantastic. And we have got the environmental surveys underway, and that includes baseline monitoring, having a station on site, gathering weather data for the area for the last 10 years, doing flora and fauna surveys and things like that. So all the important things you need to tick off. It's worth also saying that this part of the world is like any other part of the world. There are boxes to tick to get your permitting done, and that's no different to anywhere else. Hopefully the mining style and processing style that we're choosing helps expedite that, because we have some of the other things that bigger mines won't have, like tailings, hopefully, and things like that. Metallurgy, that's underway. As everyone knows we've made a DSO product. We're using ore sorting. We're still testing that. Now it's about a balance between throughput, tons, copper grades, and things like that, which I'll touch on a bit later. But that's ongoing. Look, it's really not market sensitive, other than just giving us some good, obviously, economic data, which will feed into our PEA/PFS at the back end of this year. Resource timeline, again, this seems to move around a bit, but it's all work ongoing. We're very advanced in this, and it will depend on, look, the longer it pushes back, it's going to be because we're getting more assays in and we're doing more drilling. So we shouldn't, think of it being delayed as a bad thing. And we're not saying it is. We're certainly working towards the October, November timeframe here. But a couple of things to consider in terms of resource is how much drilling we can do this year, because obviously this thing's still open in every direction, which is a fantastic problem to have, but we will be constrained by how much drilling we can do, which is not a bad problem to have. Things like Thunder, whether they make it in, it's a single hole in that part of the world. What people should understand is that our maiden resource, there's certainly going to be a lot of upside. If you've got intersections like Thunder sticking out of the ground, but aren't included in the resource, obviously there's a significant opportunity for an increase in tons and grade. So again, I touched on the PEA, and that we're working towards that, and we are aiming for the back end of this year on that. Quickly, West Desert and Copper Warrior, those things are pushing because of the amount of work and time and effort we're putting into Storm. So apologies that we haven't been moving those two forward, but we are negotiating in the background on both of these things. Not negotiating, sorry, working at a slower pace. Look, the Indian resource for West Desert's very close to sign off. We'll get that out when we can. I guess right now it may be a bit of a distraction in terms of all the Storm news at the moment, but we do have a continuous disclosure requirement. So as soon as that's ready, we'll get that out. Copper Warrior as well. It's fantastic weather down there this part of the year. There's no rush to do that. Again, it may be a distraction to the Storm work now, but look, we're certainly funded to do that, and we're looking forward to advancing that project as well. And that's in the short term as well. We're not going to wait till next year. We certainly want to do work in the next couple of months there. Okay. Again, this is out of date, almost the day you put it out, but look, we have had a fantastic response, and thanks everybody for your continued support since back in earlier in the year. Obviously, there have been fantastic results, in terms of the share price and the capitalization of the company. And I think, that's a really good reflection on the technical work that's been done, and people backing copper as, a commodity to watch in the next couple of years. People can read about this, and most people that have been with us are familiar with everybody here. So Storm, let's just talk about, results are pending, assays are pending. Let's talk about what we've seen so far and the implications and what for that going forwards. So this is a diamond rig. This is at the 4100 zone. Actually, no, that's on hole 2. So this is the hole that hit 37 meters of deeper material. That's just slightly northwest of the 4100 zone. But you can see there again how flat the area is and devoid of anything other than moon-like landscape, which I'll talk to. So now to reiterate here, Storm is 2 distinct opportunities. It's all related in terms of genetics, but there's the near surface high grade copper, which is the immediate development opportunity, which continues to grow. And then there's the new discovery at depth, which is a significant game changer and I guess endowment. It gives fantastic endowment potential for the because these deposits are very flat lying, they're very expansive, and therefore they can host a lot of mineralization. And we've got some good indications that we have a lot of that in our project, which I'll talk to. But just remember, there is 2 distinct opportunities here that's worth talking to. Now, the first one is obviously the near surface ores, and like we said, we're doing a lot of RC work here. I think by the end of the season, we should be plus 50 holes for this year, which is a fantastic achievement. We haven't been putting results out on that because there's 2 things. One, the assays will probably beat us to be able to put out the visual results. And also we've put out the visual results prior and the assays for the work done back in the spring. And you can see that things are very consistent there, and it's much more of the same. So certainly the things that are market sensitive at the moment that we deem is certainly the diamond drilling and things like that. So look, we should be assays, though it is summer. So obviously the lab's a lot busier. We're still expecting that 3 to 4 week turnaround. So expect assays in the next couple of weeks for the initial RC work that's been going on since we resumed drilling here. But the opportunity here is there's 4 or 5, there's 5 now actually with the discovery of Thunder, but there's 4 main zones that essentially stick out of the ground. These were identified by copper gossans and various features along these faults. We have about 40 hectares of mineralization exposed across by drilling at EM and also gossans. These are all open pittable resources and their grade, which I'll talk to in a second. Look, we've got an average mineralized thickness of about 24 meters and mineralized interval of about 2% copper. So that gives you a feel for, just how high grade this opportunity is. Now, if you think about copper globally, the average grade of the undeveloped assets is about 0.42% copper globally. Now, if you look at grade, and you'll see that a lot of the copper mines that are plus 2% are underground. They do have a small open pit, part of the resource, but most of it's underground. They have, a lot of these things are like the VMS and things like that, which have, zinc, lead, silver, gold, and all the other credits as well. This is 100% open pittable at this point, and we've only drilled really down to that 100 meters below surface at this point. We know that some of these deposits do continue, particularly 2750 zone, 2200 zone, and 3500 zone, and probably Thunder as well. So there is future underground potential, but we're just focusing on the open pit opportunity at this point. This is what the ore looks like. You can see there that this is from the 2750 zone, bornite and dolomite, essentially. And the engineers love it because it's essentially ore and waste, which makes it easy to treat. Look, people ask about the silver. I think we had a comment saying you guys are misleading the market because you're adding silver and zinc in your tables. We do get a little bit of silver. We do have to report it. It's part of our requirements, and it is significant. So most of it will not be obviously a credit because it's between 2 and less than 10 grams per ton, but some of the massive sulphides do have up to 70 grams per ton silver. So a small part of that might be recovered, but certainly when we talk copper, we talk about copper. There's no copper equivalents here. There's very little zinc or anything, which makes it a very, very pure product as well. There's no arsenic, selenium, cadmium, or any deleterious elements. So this makes a very clean concentrate. to give you an idea of, this is the 4100 zone where a lot of our drilling this year has been focused, but more recently we've been doing the other zones as well to build the resources up there. But this gives you an idea of the lateral extent of this thing. But also two things I'll point to, because a lot of people ask, well, what is an economic mining grade? So if you're plus 1% copper, you'll be in the top 10% of global copper deposits in an open pit sense. So if you think of some of the bigger ones that open pit, you got Mateo in Botswana, which is about 0.98% copper equivalent. The beauty of Storm is you can see here that we have larger intersections at 1%, but there's also these plus 2% zones through the ore body. And so what that gives us is opportunity, so an optionality. So, you know, based on, it's all open pittable. So we're talking $5 a ton mining compared to 60 in an underground sense. Some of those costs, don't hold me to that. Some of those costs have gone up globally, as people would know, but that's the kind of differential between the two costs of mining. So that's why open pit, you can mine at a much lower grade. Like I mentioned, it depends on how we skin the cat here for our final resource number, whether we want something around the 1% or whether we think 1.5 to 2. But you can see here that we do have potential to do much higher grades. And we can have a smaller resource at plus 2%. But look, the economics here, given the ease of access, the type of processing we're proposing, then certainly, you know, we think down to 0.7 to 0.5% copper is going to be economic here. So that doesn't mean your resource is going to be 0.5% copper. It means you can include that material in your global resource, which will give you bigger tons. Now, the more recent exciting news, I think, you know, there's, again, let's not understate the importance of the near surface ores and the ability to give us short-term production, hopefully, is that this is the next thing, which is really, you know, probably driving the share price as it has been, but this is the exciting thing as well. Now, as a reminder, we've done some gravity and EM surveys back earlier in the year. We drilled a hole 10 last year, and we really had indications that there was sniffs of a sedimentary copper deposit at depth at a certain, I guess, stratigraphic horizon. Did a gravity survey. Aston Bay did a airborne gravity survey back in 2017. That information looked like there was some correlation with the faults, and there was some correlation with where the ore was sitting. So we've decided this year to do a detailed ground gravity survey, and that's really just getting the sensor closer to the ground. You can get a lot more definition, closer spacing, because the plane's obviously not moving as fast. There's people, you know, obviously doing and taking longer readings, so it's much more higher resolution data. So what that showed is that, you know, if you said to us, you know, draw a sedimentary copper deposit in plan view, that's essentially what the gravity showed. And this interpretation is based on that raw gravity data. But a couple of key things to point out, and this is goes down to the genetics, and this is where I may get technical. So again, raise your hand and say stop if I get too detailed. But these copper deposits they're low temperature and low pressure. So they're almost like oil and gas deposits where copper fluids use plumbing system, which is usually faults. The copper fluids come out and they oxidize in where there's space. So you need fractured or vuggy type geology and or like a reductant like hydrocarbons and bitumen and things like that. So we have all those elements at Storm, and that's what we saw from last year in hole 10. So we thought there's a fairly good correlation here. So let's do a bunch of diamond holes to test the concept. So I'll just speak one thing about this diamond program was designed to test a number of different concepts. So we didn't want to be a hamster on a wheel and just drill the same kind of target each time. We wanted to maximize the use of the diamond drilling this year, and that means test a whole bunch of different concepts. As it turns out, 4 out of 4 holes have hit exactly the same horizon, same thing at depth. And that, you know, if you said to me, Dave, what does success look like at the back end of this year? And I would have said, look, if one of the holes shows the potential for economic mineralization at depth, then we're on. And look, we have now got 4 holes into this thing with all copper sulphides. Importantly, we're getting chalcocite, and which is, you know, tells you close to the center of the system. And you can see some of the, you know, this is hole 2 that we drilled this year. Now this stuff's 80% copper. So you can imagine here, if you can work out these kind of intervals, there's going to be some significant and probably economic grades in this, this drill hole here. So that's a tick, but the fact that we've actually 3 out of 3 this year have hit the same material is more than we could hope for. And it's actually telling us something. It's probably not, the outstanding technical work. It's probably the system telling you, well, there's copper everywhere down there. So we have been focused. Obviously, we are drilling the best geophysical targets, and we're not just blindly doing wildcat holes. But I'll just say, look, there's still some outstanding targets. The hole 4 is testing this margin here. So the good thing is that we're seeing that both north of the south, the Graben fault, and also south of the Graben fault, we're getting these, copper. So it's telling us that the concepts there, the geophysics is effective, and that's one thing not to understate as well. Finding these systems at depth without a good targeting tool comes down to statistics, and you don't want to be up there just drilling wildcat holes at set spacings to try and prove things up. So the fact that we've got 2 tools that are very effective in targeting is really like opens this whole belt up for us. So one, the gravity for the bigger sedimentary style, sedimentary hosted deposit, and then the EM in the near surface. So out of the EM targets that we've had and drill tested, 100% of those have hit copper sulphide. So that's fantastic result, obviously, but it also means that we've got very benign host rocks, and the sulphides are actually there's a nice contrast there. So the geology is helping us out there as well. So in terms of scale, what this thing could be, this is now looking at this is the detailed ground gravity data. You can see there how we've determined our interpretation based on the gravity response. You can see here, this underlying image is the Falcon airborne gravity that Aston Bay did in 2017. You can see here that using our fault model, this is a Graben, so there's the blocks moving around, is perfect setting for these kind of fluids to move up into like an extensional basin. You can see here that between these 2 faults is a very prominent gravity feature. And then this is ground gravity that was done by Aston Bay. You can see here that it started to define some more higher resolution information there. So, and there's some distinct targets that look very similar to the ones we have here. So this is essentially 15 kilometers long. And what I don't show in this map, that actually bends around the belt and it goes all the way down to Tempest Prospect, which is about 40 to 50 k's to the south. So you can see this is actually a regional scale opportunity, and it's a camp scale opportunity. So mineral camps are usually clusters of ore bodies, not a single big ore body, but it's an area that has, it's so well endowed that, it's usually a cluster or a number of ore bodies. So that's what we think is happening here. Very early days, obviously. So what's our plan here? We're going to, obviously next year, we're going to roll out ground gravity through here, and also EM as well, because we want to move the 2 strategies forward. So one thing to point out here as well, to back up our arm waving in this part of the world, is that there's a large amount of soil anomalies with copper in them through here as well. So that's telling us that there is copper leaking to the surface here. So very prospective, very compelling targets, and we're looking forward to getting into that next year in terms of the drilling and a further exploration. Now, just quickly on the processing side of things, so we have demonstrated the ability of ore sorting here in the higher grade parts of the system. The work we're doing now is really to say, okay, ore sorting works on that. What are the other beneficiation techniques? Because essentially, if we can, everything down to 0.5% copper is, potentially economic in the open pit sense, then how far can ore sorting go down that, recovering that material, and also what grade comes out of that? So look, we have been talking to end users just to get a feel of what products are sellable, the specs on products, what we should do, because, if we can get it right from the start, then we can obviously sell this product globally. So for us, it's probably getting a finer grain product, and it's also, do we need to be plus 50% copper? And the answer is no. The average copper grade that comes out of Australia at the moment is about 29% copper from normal sulphide flotation plants. So that gives us a lot of potential to do a finer grind, higher throughputs, and that means more tons through a potential operating plant. So that's kind of what we're working towards now. But that's one side of the coin. The other thing we're doing is showing that traditional flotation works here as well. So we are doing some test work on the flotation side, and that's really give a plan B if all the other stuff, you know, for whatever reason it has fatal flaws. At this point we don't, which is fantastic. But it's also to show if this was to be a giant deposit and, you know, with the underground and everything going at once, then we could just do traditional flotation here and that will work. So we are de-risking the MET as well. So we're not putting all this information out at the moment. That's all going to feed into the PEA. But I think it's important that, you know, we show that every processing technique can work here, because that you obviously de-risk the project in that regard. So that's a summary of where we're at. Going to open it up. Oh, location. Can't forget location. So this slide has been moved. It was up the front, but now a lot of people talk about weather. And look, name a place on the planet that doesn't have weather. There's certainly parts of Australia that you cannot work during certain months of the year. The Pilbara, the Patterson, Kimberley, Northern Queensland, Central Australia, due to weather, due to either heat or monsoon and storms, etc. So this is no different. We're not a major mining company, so we're not going to drill 24/7, 12 months a year anyway. So that's the point, is that at some point you do need to do work. We're going to be drilling for 6 months here, which I think is a fantastic, you know, go at it. Again, you know, we've done lots of drilling. It's also a good chance to reflect on the work you've done, and that makes you more efficient for the next time you get out there and with better information. So look, there is a shipping season here. So this photo here shows what the area looks like in summer. This is actually a satellite photo. You can see it's completely ice-free. Down this southwest way is where you have Cambridge Bay, and you have a lot of the gold mines through this part of the world, and there's Hope Bay, and there's a lot of base metal mines. So this route actually goes out past Red Dog to the west, and you can also get out to Red Dog through the standard Northwest Passage straight out to the west here. Through the east, this is the most ice-free passageway, I guess, and that heads down to Quebec, etc. And then you've got America and Canada and also Europe as your potential markets here. So it's open about 3 months of the year. Last year we had 56 ships that come into the area, resupplying the area. But what happens is they leave empty. So this shows what happens. So a ship comes in. It's got cranes, it offloads the tug and the barge, and then everything gets moved to site. So the beauty of this operation, and there's a few shows on Discovery and that actually show this, called high Arctic haulers. It's over dramatized, obviously, with icebergs and things like that, but don't worry, they always get through, and the kid always gets their bike on the end of it when they resupply those communities. But what it shows is you don't need a port or any other port infrastructure. Look at Sabina Gold. They have, they're a very good example of what these things look like. You have a little, not a port, you have basically a landing here with a fuel tank on it, and you can, you know, pump all your fuel up to site. So this loader comes off and it'll drive through the water. So it takes all the supplies off, but it also brings them on. So we anticipate having bulker bags full of concentrate. What that final concentrate would ever look like, they get moved onto the ship, and then the ship gets backloaded out. So that gives us better rates as well. Ships hate to leave empty, and so there's a real opportunity for us to load up any ship that's going past with, you know, that's got space with copper concentrate. So it's very simple. These guys have done it for years. This is the way to move things in the north. Now, also touching on mining. So obviously it does get cold. It is in the Arctic. So two things, it gets dark so there's about 6 weeks of complete darkness. And then there's, you know, twilight on the other side of that for about 2 to 3 months. And then it's in summer, obviously we get 24-hour sunlight. So, but mining is Polaris, mining at Nana Civic, they were all year round. So you have facilities to do that. The community here at Resolute lives there. And I can tell you, mining, flying people in and out is a lot easier than actually living there. And these guys have done it for decades. They understand how it works. And actually, the beauty of the ice means you can actually get around, and you can actually drive from Resolute to the site because it's the ice is, the sea's completely frozen over. So there is benefits in winter. We actually had the community, they came and visited our site on skidoos during the winter to check our camp out. So they tow their little almost like a little caravan behind the skidoo, and they rode 100 kilometers down to site. So it can be done. But yes, look, exploration sense, we only open work during the sort of the shoulder seasons and not in the dead winter, because we do have aviation. We don't want to expose people to the elements. Obviously, the drillers are out there on the rigs and things like that. But when you have mining infrastructure, it's fine. It's set up to do that. So Polaris operated all year round. Nana Civic operated all year round. Polaris is actually one of Teck-Cominco's most profitable mines as it was running. And the other thing, we have spoken to the end users again, like I discussed with the copper concentrate, etc. And having a punctuated fill season is no issue. So we could actually de-risk that by actually moving stuff to a port and just dealing it out once every month if we wanted to. So it's a little bit unusual, as you're not sending concentrate weekly from a mine site, but it is there is no issue with it. So that's how this part of the world operates. But look, and one thing I will point out is that it is no different to any other part on the planet. Yes, the weather does get more extreme in parts, but if you're in the tropics, then you're dealing with monsoonal rains and floods and all that sort of stuff anyway. So every part of the world has weather, and that's something to consider with any project. And that's essentially it. West Desert I won't touch on now. You can feel free to read up about these two wonderful projects as well. Both of them have copper as well, and zinc, fantastic zinc assets. But I'll just close by saying, look, Storm is an emerging. We think it's world class. We think the diamond drilling this year is really, with 100% success rate at drilling. That's a statistical anomaly. It means that there's a lot of copper down there. The geophysics are showing that's likely the case as well. We have the large scale potential, belt scale potential of the whole region. We're the dominant landholders in the area. The other thing, West Desert is also strategically important. It's the US's only indium deposit, which is significant, and we're getting a lot of interest from the US government in that regards, and we'll put the indium resource out shortly. And we have also the Copper Warrior, which is a low risk and low cost opportunity there as well. And we hope to be working with the Lisbon Valley Copper Mine, hopefully down there in the near future, to do more work down there. But that's us in a nutshell. Open it up to questions, and thanks for listening. And again, thanks for everybody who supported us. New shareholders, welcome. Look, I think it's going to be an exciting couple of years for American West Metals.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dave, for that great presentation. It was actually so interesting to hear the exploration concept and how you've been able to deliver on that. So it was good to get into the technical side of things a bit. We will open it up now to the Q&A, but I will just say that we've received over 55 questions already. So I've done my best to summarize these into themes, and I'll ask them of Dave. If there is any that we don't get to, please feel free to email. So to kick off with, I'm going to ask one from James. He wants to discuss the copper grades, and in particular, what do you anticipate the average grade of Storm mineralization to be, and will this be viable for mining?
I think we touched on that earlier. I'll start with the second question. Yes, it would definitely be viable based on, again, the global average of open pit copper mines. Because we actually will be, the best way to move things is via ship first, then rail, and then road. And so we have access to ships straight away. Yes, we have a punctuated season, but we believe that, there's nothing different to any other mining, like it's traditional open pit, the traditional equipment, traditional infrastructure here. So that will operate all year round. There's a little bit of extra things for heating, etc. So let's not think that you need 3% copper as an open pit here. That's certainly not going to be the case. So what's the average grade? Like I said, we've got the optionality, and it will come down to the processing technique and throughput that we want, then what kind of mine supports that. And as we've shown, certainly the plus 1% is going to be economic, and likely we think it's going to down to 0.5, 0.7%. But we may choose to, the processing may say, no, let's take everything over 2%, and we'll start with a 2% resource. So we're playing with that between now and the end of the year. So I can guarantee it'll be plus 1%. It may be up as high as 2%, but we just don't have a feel for that right now. But you've seen that given the sections that the ore body can give us what we need, which is the best, that's what you need. And that's what, is good.
Okay, and so you're going to be putting out the maiden resource at Storm shortly. What's the timing on that?
So that looks like October, November. Well, one thing I will say about the resource. So again, it's going to be constrained by drilling. So we can only do so much drilling. So expect the main resource to be, it's going to be open in every direction. I think I touched on this before, but Thunder. So we've drilled Thunder last week. You've seen it's 76 meters. It's got massive copper sulphides, which is, and some of the thicker massive sulphides that we've seen at Storm. So that's not going to make it into the resource because it's a single hole out there. So you can imagine what the upside looks like when there's discoveries like that still sitting there and they're not actually in the resource. So two things, is going to give us more tons and it's going to give us better grade. So adding those kind of high grade deposits to the general resource. So yeah, look, the maiden will be what it is this year, but then there's going to be fantastic upside for that. Oh, so I talked to timing, yes, October, November, hopefully. But again, if we get more drilling done, then it's going to push it back just to the timing of assays and getting that information into the database.
Yeah, understood. Okay. And since you've got this slide open on the location, can you speak to there seems to be a perception, and maybe it's a misconception, that the drilling and mining is hard in this region. Have you found that to be the case, working there and you just came back from site? What's it actually like on site?
The answer is no. I've got 20 degrees Celsius, fantastically clear. Yes, you can obviously get bad storms. Again, that happens anywhere, but you can see by the terrain. So the beauty of this part of the world, it's the Arctic desert. So we get less than 1 meter of snow per annum, which is, sounds weird, but it's actually the case. It's actually a desert. You can see there's no ground cover, there's no trees. And that the opportunity there is that, you're in the center of the Yukon or Northwest Territories, you've got a lot of lakes, you've got a lot of trees. So getting anywhere, particularly getting access exploration-wise, is very difficult. So we're looking to be more efficient next year. So that involves, we're looking hopefully to get a tracked rig permitted to work up here. So it can work independently of having helicopter supporting things like that. You can see here that you can drive anything here. You can drive a Holden Commodore here. You don't need a giant wheeled four-wheel drive or trucks or anything like that. It's completely flat and amenable and very easy to work. And what it does, so geophysics as well. You can cover a lot of ground very quickly because you're not moving loops, etc. You're not going past trees and bushes and things like that. It's a lot easier than working in Western Australia. We've got, mulga scrub and all that sort of stuff. So, and the beauty of when geophysics, particularly when you've got snow on the ground, you can use skidoos to help you get around. So what the next year's program, and we might lead into another question, and next year's program for us looks like front end loading that with geophysics, so gravity and EM, as soon as we can get up there, and that looks like hopefully March again. And then quickly that'll redefine a series of targets for us, and then we'll lead into with the drill rigs. And what does the drilling look like? We'd love to do more RC drilling in terms of the resource, and we've got 2 diamond rigs on site, so we'd like to see the best. Well, the problem we have now is we've identified the copper at depth, but now how do you find the best bits? And so that's a nice problem to have. And so, what that would look like, that more than likely look like 2 rigs testing that deeper. And the beauty of it is it's not that deep. So it's only probably 220 to 250 vertical meters deep. So, so that's a fantastically accessible with any, even with the RC, we could potentially test that. So that's what it looks like.
So in terms of the rigs, so you mentioned 2 for next year's program. Would you consider more? A few people have asked, could you, have maybe 3 or 4 rigs? Could this camp at Storm accommodate a larger program?
Yeah, so we've got 2 diamond rigs on site at the moment and 1 RC rig. So there's actually 3 rigs on site. So that would be a good starting point. We will need to upgrade the camp and add more tents. We did that actually at the back end of this season. We've just done that. So it's very simple to do. The area is very amenable and set up to do that. There's photos of our camp on our website, etc. if people are interested. So look, there is certainly the opportunity to add more. It comes down to funding, the appetite. and it's certainly there at this point. So yeah, we're looking into everything. So we'd have to move to, or any extra rig would have to move up there. But look, we moved the RC rig up here this year with no problem. So that's certainly on the cards.
Okay. And I guess there's a few questions in your talks with institutional investors or big mining companies. I'm not sure that you've been speaking to those, but it's been thrown out there. What's the general feedback that you're getting on American West and Storm in particular?
Well done. Congratulations. Look, and this is what Anna Augusta and BHP were in this project for before. They had their reasons to exit. Not all of it project related. Some of it's commercial and moving into different parts of the world, and different their charter is changing and things like that. So again, they look at, I work for BHP. It was a fantastic company to work for, but they do constrain themselves on what they can look for, because their exploration team is tasked with finding giant deposits. And that's what the brief is. And so they do run very coarse combs over the ground when they do that. And that's a valid reason. They don't want to be looking at something that's only 100,000 tons of copper or something like that. So that's their business model, and that's what they work to. But that defines how they explore. So we've obviously, being a junior, we didn't have to do that. And we look at the Sandfire's discovery history, and that Western Area's discovery history. What took them from being a $20 million company to being a $500 million to $1 billion company. So, and the trajectory. And so that means you can do incremental work and expand things, and that's worked here. So look, I'm sure this is of interest to some of those guys. But at this point, we're well funded. We've got a fantastic technical team. We've got a fantastic partner with Aston Bay. And, we've got people that have worked for big companies. We've got Dan Locker, who will be coming on as chairman of the board soon. Obviously, people know him as a very shrewd operator in the mining sense in terms for Western Areas, and really got them through some difficult times when the nickel price was really depressed. We've got Tom and myself are both ex BHP Billiton. So we've got experience of what it likes, and we've got the technical team. We've got a fantastic support from Apex Geoscience and our other contractors, which have, so we don't really need their technical expertise at this point either.
Okay, and you just touched on Aston Bay. What's the status of the earn-in with them?
So to refresh people, we can earn up to 80% of the Storm project by spending 10 million in about 9 years, I think it was. So we should cross that bridge very shortly. We've been working on this project since July 2021. So people might not remember, we'd only drilled last year, but the year before we did some geophysics on site. So we did get up there. So look, we'd be very close to that, if not past it already. But yeah, people can keep an ear out for developments in that sense soon.
Okay. I know that we've gone a little bit over time, but I did want to ask you about DSO. There's obviously lots of questions coming through, but with regard to the studies that are underway, what outcomes are you hoping for in particular?
We want to keep things as simple as possible, and that's to reduce capital, upfront capital and working capital, obviously, and just show it as a point of difference. I think, mining's changing globally. I think DSO and traditional is not you dig it out of the ground. It is a processing step, so it's not traditional DSO, but keeping things simple, cheap, and having a much lower ESG footprint, I think, is key moving forwards for any mining company. And so that's our goal, is to keep things as simple and as cheap as possible, because I think that's going to give us the highest returns on our money. It's going to facilitate the permitting, and it's going to give us a bit of a niche in a sense. So that's the intention. We are showing that this can be mined in a processed in a traditional sense as well as a fallback, and also showing that if this thing gets so big or scalable that a beneficiation plant doesn't work or is throughput constrained, then that's an option as well in the future. But certainly we're focused on, in the immediate term, having something that's simple, dry, or wet beneficiation processing is certainly going to go a long way up here to getting these approvals in place and being able to ship a product off. So what the product looks like, do we need to be 50% copper? No, it does reduce your transport costs, obviously, but you may save in processing costs by dumbing it down a little bit. Like I said, the average DSO, average processing grade is around 30% copper. So why be 50% when we can actually just, have a very sellable product at 30 or even less? Depends on, how that looks like from a saleability point of view, but also getting it out of the ground cheap and effectively.
Okay, and I guess the feasibility study will outline like the tons and costs and things in due course. But you did touch on there's different product requirements for different scenarios. Do you have anyone in mind who you might be thinking of selling to? I saw earlier in the week that the US had added copper to their critical minerals list, which is
whoever pays the most.
Sign. Okay.
And gives us the best payabilities. And look, no, I think we'll have a very competitive product. I mean, chalcocite, as people know, is an amazing, from a wet metallurgical point of view, is one of the best copper minerals to process. And, so I think any end user will be happy with what we can produce. And so, look, no, open to negotiations across the board. Okay,
and so I'll begin to wrap it up, but in terms of the upcoming news flow that investors can expect over the next sort of 1 to 3 months, how many drill results roughly do you think are going to be coming out in the current program? And then what are the other, could you just maybe summarize the upcoming catalysts?
Yeah, so in terms of drill results, like I said, I think we'll be upwards of 50 RC holes this season. So last hole we reported on was hole 18. So, like I said, I think the assay results for that should be coming in shortly for the first batch. So I think rather than put visuals out for that, we'll just report on the assays and maybe break them up into the different prospects like the 2750, 22, but we haven't seen those assays yet. So look, that's one way. So lots of RC drilling, obviously more diamond drilling, and that'll be ongoing. Now, I urge a little bit of patience because these things do take a lot of time to process. There's a lot of information coming in technically. So we have to digest it, load up into the database, do the interpretations, implications, what does it mean? So all of this does take time. So we can't put one out every couple of days, unfortunately, for the market, but we do try our best. And look, I think we've been pretty transparent and frequent in the past, and we will keep that up. It's a good story, and we want to, as soon as we get the information, we get it out there. So expect pretty much weekly news, I hope, in the next couple of months. I'd imagine, maybe not weekly in the next couple of months, but the news, there's
getting a rod for your own back there.
Yeah, I know. So again, if we are a week late, it's not necessarily bad news. It just means, there's a lot on our plate and we're trying to get it out. But look, no, solid news to the back of end of September as we get all these assay results and from the project. Then we've got lead into the resource. So that's going to be interesting to see that. Obviously a catalyst for us. It'll put a line in the sand. It's only going to get bigger from there. And then we've also got the PEA/PFS, whatever we want to call that study, at the back end of the year as well. So a lot of that information will be fairly advanced. So we probably could put out a PFS level study, if not a bit more advanced, but we'll call it a study at this point. But that towards the back end of the year. And then there's the exploration plans and the planning for next year. So obviously we started late March this year, got the camp up and running. So there's a very short break between that news flow and then getting to work next year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so exciting. And what about the next steps at West Desert and Copper Warrior?
Yes, so Indian resource is due at West Desert anytime. So like I said, we're just finding a time to sign off on the technical details there. I think people will be very impressed with the amount of indium in that. It's the world's largest, this is based on the old NI 43-101 data, the world's largest undeveloped indium deposit, and obviously not to mention the zinc, copper and silver in that. And then Copper Warrior, hopefully we can get on the ground there in the next month or two as well, and just do a very cheap and cheerful RC program there to define hopefully some nice copper. As a reminder, there's copper sticking out of the ground everywhere there. That's also traditional sedimentary copper style project. and there's a mill 15 kilometers down the road. So that's a very exciting project too. So hopefully more news on that shortly.
Okay, and do you have any final parting words that you want to leave investors and shareholders with today?
No, I think, well, two things. Thanks everyone for supporting us in the various raises going all the way back to sort of April and March this year. Without that support, we couldn't have got the proof of concept drilling done and then go on from where we are now, which is get the diamond rig up there and test some of these bigger targets, etc. So I do thank everybody, and to new shareholders, welcome. It's going to be a good ride, we hope. There's lots of upside coming into the things we just discussed, but also we'll say as well as I'd love to thank Aston Bay and our technical teams, and really I don't think we've wasted a dollar. 100% success rate with the drilling, and that's telling us something, one, about the ground, but also hopefully the technical work, and people can trust us to take this to the next phase, and that's the biggest thing, that we're just not wasting money. You don't want to be up there just drilling for the sake of it. We think we're adding value, or we have added value, and that's really rewarding, and hopefully shareholders appreciate that as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think well, I've heard that American West is one of the most traded exploration story at the moment, so a lot of interest there, and obviously that's occurring from your great work with the exploration program and the drilling success that you're seeing. So I think you also have to pat yourself on the back a bit there, Dave, and take some of that credit.
Team effort. Everyone online has helped at some point, so thank you.
So we'll wrap it up there. I will send a copy of the recording if you want to watch it again via email to everyone. And if you have any questions, if we didn't get to them, just feel free to reply to that email, and I'll get back to everyone directly. So thanks again for tuning in and listening to the story. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate all the questions that came through too.
Everyone for the questions. Great questions. Thank you.